What is your initial reaction when you walk by a graffiti piece? Does it change depending on what's being presented? I'm one to appreciate all kinds of art. And I know when you think of graffiti, you think of vandalism, defacing, and ruining public and private walls of buildings. But what about the graffiti that has a powerful meaning behind it? Hi, my name is Sierra Lundy. I have a big appreciation for graffiti art. I can understand the deeper meaning behind some other countries and our own propaganda that helps allow causes to have a voice and to be seen from the public eye. And honestly, I think there's some pretty amazing artists out there that can express themselves in ways that could not be achieved without graffiti. Hopefully after this speech, you can have a better understanding why graffiti is more important than many believe. When we think of graffiti, we think of vandalism, destruction of property, but do we think about what it's symbolizing? Or do we just assume it's gang related or done by stupid teenagers that have nothing better to do with their day? In countries that have recurring uprisings or poor government, people use graffiti to glorify their end of the issues and make it public and seen. Graffiti helps artists express themselves freely among their cities and countries, more than what other people think. They will create art that people will interpret on their own and get an understanding of how and why someone would have made that piece of art. In school, it is pretty common for walls and bathrooms and outside walls of the buildings to be defaced. I read an idea where school creates an approved image that students can work on together and create a mural where all students and staff can appreciate and have a better understanding, a better respect of the building. That way students who want to participate and express themselves in that kind of way are able to, and they can express their feelings. Some of these graffiti artists may be enrolled in art classes, but sometimes that's not enough to help contain their creativity. After-school programs can be very beneficial at keeping these students focused on creating artwork rather than vandalizing school property. When students have a creative outlet they can focus on, they're less likely to damage school property and in an attempt of expressing themselves. Screened products. Graffiti lets people preserve their history and culture as well. When you see people creating art about their culture and heritage, they feel as if it is important to keep it alive. A lot of important feelings and beliefs get lost behind all the other stuff going on in the world. So it is important that they keep it going and keep it public. In this article, it expresses how in the 1960s, gangs and other activists would spray paint subways, bridges, outside of buildings, alleyways, etc. to support their cause and instill a sense of community, solidarity, and highlight injustices. These self-expressive tools were utilized for those who would otherwise be unable to reach an audience outside their communities. In a way, graffiti represents the voices of the community, demanded the attention of those who would otherwise turn a blind eye. Graffiti is undeniably linked to an expression, and its inherited value cannot be ignored. Christian Garcia. In this BU Today article by Edward A. Brown, they say freedom of graffiti is the ability to be anywhere and everywhere, and sometimes a daredevil place that gives it a romantic edge and powerful exposure. This is very important to understand. If an artist goes out of their way to make a piece of art that symbolizes something bigger than what people think, then it obviously is something really important that needs to be recognized among the public. You walk by a bridge, let's say, and notice something on the sides of the walls that face the streets. You get curious, so you walk over there, and you notice it has something to do with the BLM movement, and it starts to make you think. That's the point. It always makes you think and continuously see the change that it could create if it's more publicly seen. In Syria, they have many, many protests, as we know. During this protest specifically, Dara has an army laid out onto them, killing residents back to back in front of people, children, moms, etc. Two Arab dictators stood down, and other countries were having many protests. A group of Syrians have created a graffiti art tag that wrote, "The people want the fall of the regime," and they added a line, says Nabel Rashidat, who lived next door to the school. "It's your turn, doctor," referencing the article Revisiting the Spark That Kindled the Syrian Uprising by Kelly McEvers. If graffiti was widely accepted more throughout the world, people would see a lot more color and artistic abilities. Shedding light on issues and letting artists draw freely. According to Is It Graffiti Art by Edward A. Brown, he interviews a man, O'Donnell, who says, "Graffiti is literally the writing on the wall, the voice of those who cannot find any other way to publish their thoughts anonymously." Explaining how artists know this is a way to express how they want to share with the world, freely, with no backlash, and all anonymous. It opens a new world that people who are too scared to share their opinion has someone who is willing to create something and express the way that everyone is feeling, so it can spread around town the same way that everyone thinks. I feel as if a lot of people would object to this idea, mostly because people think about graffiti, they think about vandalism and defacing and ugly, huge lettered tags. But there are other beautiful pieces within those walls as well. If people were very much against the idea, maybe we could make it so graffiti was not illegal, but the artists could have a designated area around town where they can express themselves. Obviously, there's still going to be tagging. Tagging is never going to go away, whether we find it illegal or we just let it go. Down on Granary Avenue, Bellingham, there's a wall of artists that go and do some amazing artwork on the huge mural down by the water. If you live in Bellingham and have not gone yet, you should definitely go check out that park. There's some amazing artists down there who have created one of the most beautiful murals in Bellingham, and it changes constantly. I would definitely recommend it. If this plan was adopted, there would be less unwanted graffiti around town and more in those designated areas. Obviously, there's going to be the tags, as we said, but there's also going to be really beautiful artworks, more than there probably was before, because now that's going to be kind of encouraged. The artists come and do their own thing on these walls. In some other intense countries, people see graffiti as their way of speaking up against the government and the propaganda made by the government to quiet citizens and find out the truth about a lot of issues that's going on fully within the population. Which the people take into their own hands, of course. A survey argues that political art is that which criticizes opposes the status quo of the movement and gives a voice to those who are marginal, forgotten, and excluded. The role of political art into the 2011 Egyptian Revolution. This kind of ties back into that I was saying, how the kind of art it gives the art that gives the forgotten and excluded people a voice. It creates a voice for the people who feel too small and too unimportant in this world, a say. If it was not adopted, either way there'll still be tags. There's gonna be tags downtown, there's gonna be tags on your buildings of your business, sometimes even on the houses around town. But there would also be a lot less incentive for them if there would be less incentive for there to be unwanted tags, because there could be a place where people can go freely and constantly and put up new pieces of art all around town, and they can express however they feel. As I read this article about the difference between street art and vandalism, I had a funny thought about how it described how there is tagging, of course, the ugly, big named, just like scratchy looking kind of things, and then the other art that captures the concept that is shared among people. It then starts to say, if vandalism is abhorrent because it attempts to own public space, the advertisement is vandalism. Liam Miller, The Conversation. Which of course got me thinking. Advertising privatizes our public spaces. Ads are placed out of public strategy. They are built to coerce and manipulate. They affect us whether we want them to or not. But this is not reciprocated. Liam Miller. Isn't that funny? I never thought to think that advertising is just taking up our public spaces with ugly signs that are awful, and they make us feel bad for how we are not good enough. But we let it slide. We let it happen, right? We just see big billboards. We see big, like, public advertisements of like sheets on buildings, and we just think it's normal. But then we generally see amazing art on our public walls, and I think it's the worst thing that could have happened to this town. I think it's the opposite. There was, and kind of still is, this movement that is trying to reduce the amount of street harassment from men to quite literally girls ages 10 and up. I am sure there are kids younger that men try to prey on, but in this article, it's specifically talking about those women. This movement is called chalking back. Their art is a little different. It includes chalk, not spray paint. And the women experiences from all around the world will draw on sidewalks everywhere, and their experience with sexual harassment, so everyone who can walk by and see. They make it bright, big, and noticeable. So they can try to bring more light to this issue. We know sexual harassment among men to women on the streets is very, very common. It shouldn't be that common. It helps to reduce the harassment people get on the street to bring acknowledgement to the issue. The fact that the chalk inevitably is washed away or faded over a couple of days is effectively symbolizing of catcalling. The experience of being verbally harassed is momentary, but it's something that can stick in the mind forever. Jessica Bryan. If you would like to see some of these ideas I spoke about go into action, even just here in Bellingham, you can support local artists if you see them, or support open air art altogether. The benefit of implementing my plan helps local artists get out there and show and express how they feel about things, and all over the city. And a plus, it makes our city way more colorful, and I think our city needs a little more color. You can see everywhere in Bellingham how there's lots of beautiful street art from amazing artists, right downtown, on Granary Street, Fairhaven, everywhere. I believe we need more of that here, and anywhere to give each city personality and identities. It helps with giving purpose among the people it homes. Street art and graffiti is not always just untasteful tags and markings. They can be beautiful and explain injustices that need light shined on them. They are some of the most important parts of defining a city for who they are as people, and without them, every city, no matter where in the world they are, would have no body to it. Street art is temporary, but the meaning can last a lifetime. Thank you.